Today we're going to talk about what is self-reflection and why is it so important and how it can impact all the areas of your life. So social, emotional, physical, really everything that you could possibly think of. It's really a powerful tool that, again, like I mentioned, you can really start to use today. But first, I want to hear from you guys. So we talked about this being an interactive presentation, and I hope that it helps everyone to learn and really implement the material. But I want to know, why are you here today? Why did you decide to join this presentation? What are you hoping to get out of it? Just put some responses in there using, again, going to minty.com and using the code that you can see above, 49521286. Yes, we have a couple things. Learning and reflecting, growing and learning, learning some more tools around self-awareness, which I hope we will learn today. Yep, definitely in the role as leadership. I'm going to be making sure I hit upon that part of it for sure. Oh, that's a good one. After a hard year, I want to invest more time in learning how I responded. That's meeting other women. Awesome. Better prioritization. Prioritization of time and energy. We will certainly be talking about that and how self-reflection can help you to better do that. Always room for reflection, that's for sure. Finding ways to be more confident. Hopefully learning or reflecting on your strengths and your challenges in order to be more confident and to really use your strengths and bring them into the workplace for sure. Awesome, thank you all. I think we'll hit on each of those things. I think they're all connected in a lot of ways, but please feel free to ask questions or jump in at any time. I want this to be interactive and to really be helpful for you all. So again, just a quick recap of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about what self-reflection is, why is it so important, and what happens next. So it doesn't end at self-reflection. Kind of need to take a few more steps after that. And again, we will get to that cycle, but really quick, brief definition of what self-reflection is. So basically, curiously questioning how both internal and external factors are impacting your experiences. So how are the things that you're doing, that you're thinking, that you're feeling affecting you and affecting people in the world around you? And I think taking it one step further is, once you reflect on it, to determine whether or not that's the impact that you want to be having on yourself and on the world and on the people that you lead, the people that you work with, for sure. And again, I'm going to get you guys involved and start reflecting right now in something that we call the perfect leader exercise. And you may have done similar in the past, but basically I want you to think about one person. It could be in the workplace or it could not be in the workplace, but someone that you think of as a leader, a perfect leader, and think about the traits that you really admire about them and that you aspire to be like. What makes them a perfect leader in your eyes? And just quick little adjectives of how you would describe that person.
Should we share?
What was that?
I just said, should we share out loud, or you just want us to think about it?
Oh, I'm sorry. If you could go to minty.com and use the code to enter.
Oh, okay. I've been late.
That is an excellent question. Feel free to jump in and say it out loud as well. I would love to hear from everyone. But yeah, if we put it in here, we can reflect in everything that's entered. If it's entered more than once, it will get bigger. You see that kind and honest is kind of centered in the middle, meaning that those adjectives were entered more than once.
Okay, give me a second.
Sure. If you have any issues, let us know.
4, 5, 2.
I just put a link too that goes to the direct if y'all want to click that as well.
Thank you, Emily. We have some really good ones coming in. Kind and honest, again, is kind of staying at the beginning, as well as in the middle is the bigger. But humble is a really good one. I think relatability is huge. Listening skills, listener, someone with grace. Empathy, empathetic. Ethical, very important. So yeah, I mean, all similar. I think that most of us would agree with a lot of these adjectives being important in a leader and someone that we look up to, but not always easy at the same time. And that's why self-reflection is so important, because we tend to get wrapped up in our own things, and it's hard to be that empathetic, consistent listener. Good ones. Adaptable, another really good one. Aware. Nice. I'm going to ask you guys to do one step further and to reflect on that reflection and think about, or basically to answer the question, what did you think about this exercise? Was it really easy for you to come up with someone? Did you think of someone right away? Was it difficult? Was it emotional? Did it trigger any positive or negative thoughts for you? Just reflect on what your own internal experience was when thinking about this leader. Grateful, inspired. Miss them. That's a good one. So from the little sample size we have, it seems fairly positive. Maybe some mixed emotions about missing them, or if you no longer work with them. Thinking of negative leaders, yes. It's hard to think of the good without also thinking of the bad. But that's okay. I think that's part of the reflection piece. Desirable traits, easy to think of. All right. So let's talk about that experience a little bit. And getting into more of the informative part of the presentation is noticing what you noticed. So our body emits responses, and you see what emit stands for here, and I'll go over it. But basically, the responses that your body emits is really all the information that you need in order to fully reflect on your experiences. And we often think of emotions and thoughts when we think of the information that we're receiving from our body. But it does go deeper than that. And being aware of all 5 pieces can really help you in the reflection process. So of course you have your emotions, and you know that feeling angry or triggered or sad or happy. And I think most of us are pretty in tune, or at least try to be in tune with how our emotions are affecting us, although that is a big part if it's not. And thoughts. We think we're generally aware of our thoughts. I find that the 3 that people may not be as familiar with or really take into as much consideration are memories and images and sensations. And something that I read a while ago and that I found to be really relatable, and something that I see come up with clients all the time, is memories and how important your memories are. Because oftentimes when we think of ourselves as a thinker or an overthinker or someone who worries or is really anxious, we're not having new thoughts. We're not actually continuously thinking. We're replaying the same thoughts over and over and over again in our minds, which essentially are memories. We're replaying memories. And to delve a little deeper into the mental health side, memories and images, kind of bringing those 2 together. When we feel depressed or when we feel down, a lot of times we're thinking about past memories, reflecting on past experiences that maybe didn't go as well as we wanted them to. Or we're projecting into the future, which can lead to more of the anxiety state. It's really important to keep in mind how all of these things are impacting us and impacting our experiences. And we have all of this stored within our body, especially the memory piece that we may not even be aware of, but it's impacting our perspectives and how we're interpreting situations and different people. So to keep that in mind, and even if you want to just yourself, we won't actually go into the Minty and do this, but think about the exercise we just did when you were reflecting on a perfect leader and then how that experience was for you. I'm sure there was a lot of memories coming up, but what else was part of that for you? And images, I have to mention, Emily, one thing that I never knew until very recently is that some people don't actually see the images in their minds, that we just assume that most of us, I think the large majority of people, are able to see certain images in our mind. So again, bringing up past memories or projecting into the future and kind of seeing in our mind's eye what that might look like. Some people, including Emily, are not able to do that, which I think is just an important thing to know about maybe yourself or other people on your team or people in your life, your family, and how that might change the way that they reflect and how they interact with us. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was really interesting. So thoughts, of course, we have our unique own thoughts that come up on a day-to-day basis, in addition to those that are kind of replaying in our minds. And then sensations. So we can't forget about that mind-body connection. I think the term mind-body connection really downplays and minimizes how strong and how powerful our bodies are, and how what our bodies send to us, really truly, if we're listening to it and in tune to it, can give us possibly even more information than the rest of these others combined. And it could be through physical sensations, it could be through symptoms that you feel, feeling especially tired or having a headache. If you're someone who has like some of those more mild health conditions, I encourage you to take a step back and look at that and what that might mean for you and how you're responding to your environment and then your own thoughts and feelings. So just keep this in mind, emits the emotions, memories, images, thoughts, and sensations, and how all of that information that our bodies and our minds are giving us can really help us to reflect and then move on to the next phase.
Hey, Bonnie, I have a quick question. How do you know if you can't see the images? I guess, how did you figure out that Emily couldn't?
That might be something Emily would even want to question. So Emily brought it to my attention, recognizing, I think it was an article or something you had read, and then you realized it sounds like it was very interesting to me, because if you're not someone who sees images, you don't know that because it's never been any other way for you. And to come to the realization that other people do see images, I think is the point where Emily was like, whoa, this is super interesting.
Yeah. If for me, I asked the question, like somebody asked me, I was doing some guidance and learning on CBT therapy and some additional therapies. And one of them, it was talking about visualization, and it said, see the apple, what does it look like? Can you turn the apple? And I'm like, and I asked my mom, I was like, Mom, can you do this? She's like, no. I'm like, okay. Then I asked my husband, he's like, you're an idiot. Yes, everybody can see this. And I'm like, what? No, they can't. Like, I can't. So as somebody that has been teaching visualization for years, I didn't know that y'all can actually see images in your brain.
Weird.
It's just so fascinating. And so after having this conversation, I went on YouTube, of course, and Dr. Google, and I had to do a little bit of research on it. And there are a lot of videos and a lot of like explanations of how it's just your brain working differently. There's a piece of your brain, part of your brain, I can't even remember, to be honest, at this point, but that just functions a little differently. And it begs the question of what other people can and cannot do that we just assume is normal, and how interesting that conversation can be to have with other people. And I also think that's why the whole emits process can be so powerful and important to recognize and realize for ourselves, because some are going to be stronger than others, and we're all impacted by these things in different ways. So if I'm thinking of senses in particular, I think obviously some people have visual impairment, but do people hear, see, smell things differently, and how does that impact their life? It's really interesting. Good question. Thank you. But why is this so important? So why is it so important to think about how your body is responding in the messages that our body and our minds are giving us? And it's because of this cycle that you see up on your screen right now. It's reflection, awareness, and action. So without reflection, you don't have awareness of what is and is not working for you in your life. And without knowing what is not working, or what you like or dislike, or why you may be responding a certain way, it's really hard to take any corrective action or intentional action. So I think each of us, we may be caught up in our own cycle of just, this is what we do, this is how we live, this is how we think. But without reflecting on that and recognizing whether or not it's truly moving us in the direction that we want to go in, we're going to stay stuck, whether it be at work, whether it be at home, really across the board. But especially at work, I'm talking about leadership today and working with a team and possibly being someone that a lot of other people look up to. I think it even takes this process one step further in its importance, because you can have such a big impact on other people. But the other thing that you'll notice is that it's not a linear pattern. It's a cycle that we are continuously going through, and you're not necessarily having to start at reflection. You could start at any one of these points: the action phase, the awareness, or the reflection. So you may do something without even really thinking about it, because it's just kind of what you do. And if you're able to take a step back from that and take a minute to reflect on it, it's going to be very powerful for the future you, if that makes sense. If you're just going and not really recognizing how your thoughts and your behaviors are impacting the people around you or your mission in your workplace, then you're going to keep moving in the wrong direction. But again, it's a cycle. You can kind of jump in at any one of those phases, but it's important to have all three at some point. Does that make sense? Any questions about that part? I just wanted to take a quick minute to go a little more in depth about the action phase, because that is really important. And one of the things that we say at WorkSpeed is that wisdom is not just the knowledge, it's the knowledge plus the action. So you can know all of these things about yourself and the world, but if you're not taking any steps to either continue building on your strengths or to correct anything that may not be working for you, then that wisdom feels pretty useless. So the action phase is really important. And it allows you to avoid the insanity curse, which I think that so many of us fall into. I'm sure that most of you have heard the insanity curse is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. I think this is, whether consciously or subconsciously, we feel stuck and we're not quite sure why. And it takes a little bit to step back from that and realize that you're doing the same things and expecting different results, instead of thinking about what needs to change. And that's, of course, where the reflection and the awareness comes in. But yeah, I just wanted to really highlight this action phase and how important this piece is if you're wanting to set goals or experiments, as we like to call them, because you always want to leave room for failure when you're trying new things. And make sure that it's more of a trial and error process when you are incorporating new behaviors and new thought processes and really anything into your life. It's going to be a trial and error process. So yes, action phase is very important. I wanted to give you a quick example. So this is me, obviously, and my two boys. And this was about a year ago. So my two little boys here have their quarantine hair, or their lack of haircuts, I should say. But I had not shared this picture with anyone else the first time. I just thought the photographer really captured me in this picture, because I'm in my overthinking state. I'm not in the moment at all, appreciating. We were actually out on a farm during this photo shoot. So outside that window was just this beautiful landscape of horses and all these wonderful things. And the boys are looking because they're young children and they don't get caught up in our minds like we do. But I'm stuck in my thoughts. And this is a real life example of how reflection and awareness, or lack thereof, can keep us stuck in what I call the analysis paralysis. So I am a self-defined overthinker. It leads to anxiety, for sure, or anxious thought patterns, as I like to say. Not actually giving it a title or giving myself a title. But analysis paralysis is overthinking to the point where you're not taking action. So you're just thinking and thinking and thinking. And often it's for someone who's wants perfection and tends to move in that direction of wanting things to be perfect. But the problem is that you end up not doing anything or making very small actions because you're overthinking it. And I've done this for a while throughout my adult life. And it wasn't until maybe the past couple of years, as I've gotten into my 30s, that I've had really incredible people around me to kind of point out, like, hey, you've been talking about this for a while, you just need to do it. And then taking that intentional directed action, and even though it's not perfect, just moving in the right direction. So I think other people can probably relate to this, which is why I use it as an example. But again, it's an example of reflection and awareness, because if you're not aware of this pattern and you're just continuously thinking to yourself, I feel like this is something that I've always wanted and I'm not getting it, and can get really frustrating, without realizing that you're not taking the correct actions to make it come true or make it really create itself. So yeah, it's my example. But I want to know, do you have your own dope moment example? Do you have anything in your life, especially as it pertains to work, that you've kind of looked back on now and were able to realize, like, oh my goodness, I was keeping myself stuck there, and it was really not to my advantage, put it that way. And this is something else you can share in Minty, or just unmute and share with the group.
Hey, Bon, I have such a good example of this, and I just realized it literally like within the past couple of months, and it stems back like way long time ago. Mm-hmm. So I always knew that like commercial banking wasn't, kind of my last stop. I was a finance major. I got recruited into it and knew I wanted to do something that was more aligned with why I went to college, or that was more public service oriented, etc. And so in my first couple years, I used to always take modern dance classes, because I was also that's why I went to school for modern dance and finance. But in my first couple of years, I was taking these classes, and I actually got asked to be in this modern dance company's apprenticeship program. But I was like in year 3 of this really prestigious analyst program, and I was studying for the GMAT to get my MBA. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. Like, I won't make any money. Like, who could do that? And I think, and I just remembered that. And I was like, why in the world would I have not, in my early 20s, not done that? Like, and it was all limiting beliefs, mm-hmm. all thinking that I had to achieve the same financial success as like my parents. And if I would have just had somebody to speak to, like a coach at the time, not a mentor, because my mentors were all in the finance industry, and so that wouldn't have worked, but a true coach that would have helped me realize my limiting beliefs, it would have totally changed the trajectory of my life. And so it's crazy, but it's a big dope.
That is a really good example. And it's the fact that it happened when you were so young, I think, is really telling. But I also think it's really interesting that you mentioned your parents and how their beliefs and the way that you were raised, and potentially the things that you were told all throughout your life, really impacted such a big decision. Yeah. And I want to mention Louise Hay as someone that you may or may not have heard of. She's actually passed away at this point, but she was really big, like in the 1980s and 1990s, with the AIDS population. And she talks a lot about this sort of thing, and it's just mind-altering if you take even one bit of the information that she shares. But I bring it up because a piece of it is that how we have these beliefs about ourselves and our worlds, and how so much of that is not actually our own beliefs. It's just things that we've heard and have been told our whole lives. But that's part of the reflection and the awareness process, is kind of picking out those pieces of what do I truly believe? What do I want in my life? What do I want for the people around me? Not what's all this other junk that people have told me. Well, also recognizing that those people and your parents and people who raised you, they meant well, and they were just speaking and coming from their own experiences. They weren't trying to hold you back or hurt you in any way. So there's no, hopefully, the harsh feelings that may come along with that. But just the recognition that they had their own messages, but it doesn't mean that you need to continue on with that pattern. It's really powerful. I really highly suggest any of her work.
What was the last name again, Bonnie?
Louise Hay.
Hay?
Yep, Hay.
Oh, thank you.
There's a lot of books that you can even still find on YouTube for free, the full recordings of them. But yeah, I definitely recommend her work. And a lot of people that influenced her work and others in talking about, I just need to throw this in there because I think it's really important in all of this and what is coming up for us. But a lot of times it's around the age, or most of the time, they would say 100% of the time, it's around the ages 5 to 7 that we stop creating our own ideas. And because we've kind of been told by the world that it doesn't matter, and this is the way things are, and this is what you need to do. And tapping back into that child and that curiosity and creativity and all of those things that we had naturally as children, and how powerful that can be. But yes, thank you for sharing. I think that is a really good example. And how when we take the time to reflect on those types of experience, the hope is that you don't feel badly about it, but you just use that information to shape your future experiences and not making the same sort of life impacting decision. I don't want to say mistake, because I don't think anything is a mistake. I think we're all making the decisions that felt right to us in the moment. But I want to see a couple of the other things. Trying to fix my husband instead of understanding he doesn't need to be fixed. Yes, that's a big one. Whether it's your husband or any partner or anyone in your life, the fact that you have very little control over them. Yep, that's another big one, that work needs to fill a bigger space than other parts just because it is such a large part of your time, or how possibly those two things can kind of interconnect. Because unfortunately work is necessary for all of us to take up the large majority of our time. Getting stuck in fear of what I'm not versus capitalizing on them. Yes, that reminds me of the analysis paralysis that I get stuck in quite often. It's same as doubting my own abilities. Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. That's powerful examples, and I think things that most of us can relate to. Okay, so I kind of already hit upon this. I want to go a little more in depth in some of the common roadblocks to success when you're engaging in this reflection and awareness process. And 3 of those things, they're kind of interconnected. They're all somewhat cognitive, but convictions, confirmation bias, and desirability bias. Most of us are aware of our convictions, and those are strongly held beliefs that we have about ourselves, about other people, and about the world. But we need to realize what those convictions are. And going back to my previous statement, do these things still hold true for you now, where you are in your life right now today? Or are they things that you've been told your whole life that are supposed to be true, or just things that maybe your caregivers believed? But also, how are those strongly held beliefs impacting the way that you think and feel and act now? And again, is it aligned with how you would like to live and how you would like to impact other people at this point? Confirmation bias is a fairly common psychological concept that I think is fascinating. So if you have not heard of it, you'll probably think about it all the time now. But basically what the confirmation bias is that we seek out information that confirms what we already believe. Or very related is that we interpret kind of the gray areas of life as confirming what we already believe. And the example I always use for this, because it's just true and it just makes so much sense, is say you're in the market for a new car and you have in your mind what that ideal new car would look like. Say it's a red Ford Explorer. Try to tell me that every time you're out driving on the road, you don't see red Ford Explorers everywhere. And it just seems like they're everywhere. And you may have positive thoughts about that, like, oh, look, this is exciting. There's a lot available. It's whatever. Or you may have really negative self-defeating thoughts about it, like, ugh, look at all these people driving my dream car and I'm not able to have it, and, whatever that looks like for you. But the point is, confirmation bias is that, are there really more red Ford Explorers on the road, or are we just looking for them because that's what's in our mind right now? That's kind of something that we're thinking about and prioritizing. And that's a really small example of a confirmation bias. The truth is that we typically look for the information that confirms what we believe rather than trying to see it from another person's perspective or another perspective in general. And related to that is the desirability bias. And that is looking, feeling, and acting in a way that we think other people want us to look, act, and feel, or behaving in a way that we think others are going to find favorable. And again, this could be completely subconscious process. You're not aware that you're doing it, but that's where the reflection awareness comes in, is recognizing when you're working off of the desirability bias and not necessarily the things that are really important to you. So it's just 3 ideas. Again, they're all kind of interconnected on the way that our brain can play tricks on us. But if we're aware of it, we can actually use that information to our advantage. Not sure. So we still have some time if we want to talk about this a little aloud, but this next exercise is actually going to be provided to you as a PDF after the presentation. I think it was actually already mailed as well with the Minty, but the Team of Geniuses exercise is a really great reflection exercise, especially for someone in a leadership position. And what it goes over, and if you have it, pull it up. I unfortunately did not add it into the presentation because I was envisioning it as something that you could take a takeaway that you could do afterwards. But it's looking, if you had to categorize yourself in a way, and we have it in 4 different blocks, as a thinker, a finder, a talker, or a doer. And to really put some thought into which of those blocks you fit into. And you may kind of lap, you probably will overlap, but primarily, what is your role in thinking about yourself as a leader and within your work team in particular? And it's pretty self-explanatory what each of those things are, but just quickly, if you're a thinker, you're someone who, let me start with finder actually. If you're a finder, you're someone who finds the issues, finds the problems within your workplace, and tends to point them out to other people. If you're a thinker, you think about those things. Whether or not you're saying it out loud is something different, but you're maybe having productive thoughts about it, or you may just kind of be getting stuck in a cycle about it. Talker, you're talking about it, you're communicating about it, and it could be the same thing. It could be productive conversations, discussion around it, or it could be you're just complaining. And then last is a doer, someone who takes action, whether it's your own action and things that you've come up with as a solution, or you're putting other people's ideas into practice. The fact is that all 4 of these types of people are necessary within a team, within a group. You need all 4 of this type of person in order to be effective as a team. And that's because if you have 4 doers, then you're all just going to be acting, and not really taking a step back to see, okay, what's working and not working, what do we need to talk about, and have the open communication about it. So what I encourage you all to do is to take a little bit to think about where you fit into this matrix. And then to even take it one step further and ask your team where they think you fit in. And then to compare the 2 and see if what your own beliefs and convictions about yourself fit what other people are seeing and how you interact in the workspace. And then even take it one step further and see where each of your team members fit into this matrix. And are there any gaps in your team? So maybe you are all talkers and doers, and you have really great conversations, but you're kind of blinded to some of the other things that may not be going as well that you could maybe take action on. So do you need to find a finder? Do you need to find that thinker? Someone who really puts a lot of intentional thought into how things work and how they could be improved. Does anyone have any? Take a minute to think about it, but any comments about that, or any thoughts that come up automatically for you?
I just want to note that we do, as I said earlier, Bonnie works with me, and we do this, and it's so interesting because I'm the finder doer mix. and she is totally the talker and thinker aspect of it. And it's so funny because her and John, there's some others, but they fill my gaps and how much it has. Like, we talk all the time that we've never been on such a team that is so effective and efficient and like doing great work. And it's so interesting. And then also, like, I'm thinking like Rutger or in the team, like we work with Davidson College. They got three, like their main coaches, all three of their coaches are thinkers. Every one of them are thinkers. They know they're thinkers. And so it's interesting as we're trying to get them to fill the gaps of doers, even though you think that a sports team would have action with it. So that's just some of the interesting things that do come with it.
It's absolutely true. And it's true with the WorkSpe team is that we really fill in each other's gaps. And I think that's a much more positive way to look at it and to kind of describe it than focusing on weaknesses and the areas that or the things that people are not doing well. But how do you complement each other to get things done and to be effective, really? And you have to think about these things in order to build a team, to build your team of geniuses. And I don't always love to kind of box ourselves in, but the truth is that we are human beings and we all have tendencies. And we need to be aware and reflect again on these tendencies in order to capitalize on them, to use them in the correct ways, but also to recognize when we need to take a step back and let someone else fill in maybe a challenge area for us because we can't do it all. It's just not going to happen. Anyone doesn't have any other comments about that, again, I really encourage you, and we'll send it out again if you don't have it, but really encourage you to take the time to do that exercise and to bring it to your team and have them do it as well. It would be really eye-opening. Just a quick final thought, and this is my philosophy in life really, is just try not to take yourself too seriously. I think that this self-reflection and self-awareness can be scary for a lot of people because it feels like now I have to do these things or take this action that has been scaring me or causing fearful thoughts. And or maybe there's a fear that you're not going to reach the point that you would like to reach. So then you just stay stuck on where you are now because it's comfortable. But the goal of reflection is that you're moving in the right direction. There is no perfection. If you reach an endpoint, that means that your goal wasn't big enough because we're constantly evolving. And what your reflection is now and what you're finding out about yourself now could be very different in a year, 2, 5 years from now because your life is continuously changing. So that cycle of reflection, awareness, action is lifelong. And if you look at it as more of an exciting journey and self-discovery and really, again, capitalizing on your strengths and finding the strengths in other people, it can be empowering rather than looking at this is something that I need to do and it's really important and I have to get it right because that's usually just not helpful. My contact information, feel free, please. I would love to hear from everybody. My email, obviously, my phone, but also WorkSpe, the WorkSpe team, we're really working hard on coming out with some new intensive programs, 16-week programs in particular that we're getting out there and really confident about and helping others and kind of holding them accountable through processes like this, through the reflection and action phases of things. So yeah, reach out to us, reach out to me. If there's any questions about this particular presentation or anything in general. I thank you all. I thank you all for your time this morning.
Yes, thank you, Bonnie. That was a great presentation and discussion. I don't know, I personally appreciated all those examples you provided on how our brain can just play those tricks on us, but how we can use them to our advantage, whether it's professional or personal. So I don't know, I really appreciated this discussion today. And thank you everyone else who took the time out of your day to join us. Our next program is going to be in August 10th. Where we're going to dive into harnessing your skills. So mark your calendars for that lunch meeting. And as always, I put in the chat here just a brief survey link, if you wouldn't mind just letting us know how you felt today's discussion went. We always look to improve our programming. And of course, if you missed anything at the beginning, we'll archive this recording as well. So I'll provide those links to you following this event. So just wanted to thank everybody again. Hope you all have a wonderful day, despite the rain if you're in Chattanooga.
No, good luck everyone who's there.
Yes. Stay safe.
Tornadoes.
Exactly.
Thank you. And I did put in the chat the Wise Up Leadership Intensive that she was talking about as well. So if y'all want to check it out, you can do that or go to worksby.com/leaders.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time.
Great job, Bonnie. Love you.
Thank you.